Now, to my dear students and the viewers, I take this opportunity to welcome you back to my channel, Teacher One Insight. My name is called Peter Otolo Oluoch, a teacher of history and government. Now, today we want to have a look at the Second World War. Now, the 1930s witnessed the rise of dictators in Europe like Adolf Hitler of Germany, Benito Mussolini of Italy, and General Francis Franco of Spain. Now, the dictators intentionally defied international opinion and disregarded the Versailles Treaty and League of Nations. Now, their activities and those of Japan began to interfere with the prevailing peace in the world. Now, the Second World War was fought between the two opposing powers, namely, we had what is called the Allied powers, and also we had the Axis powers. Now, the members of Allied powers were five, namely Britain, France, United States of America, USSR, and Belgium. The Axis powers had Germany, Italy, and Japan. Now, to my students, we want to have a look at the causes of the war. Now, the students were asked, identify the immediate cause of the Second World War. The correct response is the territorial violations or the invasion of Poland by Germany. That was the immediate cause of the Second World War. Now, the students have also been asked, state five causes of the Second World War, 1939 to 1945. 5 marks. The responses are 1. Hitler's ambition to restore German dominance in Europe. The second response, Germany's violation of the Treaty of Versailles. 3. The rise of nationalism in Europe. 4. Economic problems caused by Great Depression. 5. The rise of dictatorships. 6. The arms race. 7. The weakness of the League of Nations. 8. The policy of appeasement. 9. Military alliances. And finally, territorial violation or the invasion of Poland by Germany, which was our immediate cause. Now, we have 10 causes of the Second World War. My dear students, if you are asked to identify or to state any of those 10 causes, please state what we have noted or what we have given there. But remember, the immediate cause of the Second World War is the invasion of the Poland by the Germany or the territorial violation. Now, we can be asked a question revolving around one of the causes of the Second World War. For instance, the students were asked, or you may be asked, state one way in which the rise of dictators in Europe contributed to the outbreak of the Second World War. Now, we have been asked that the rise of dictators, and we have mentioned some of the dictators like Benito Mussolini and also the Adolf Hitler. How did they cause or how did they contribute to the outbreak of the Second World War? The correct responses are 1. They overthrew democratic government. 2. They rearmed themselves. And finally, they engaged in act of aggression and attacked other countries. My dear students, those are ways in which the rise of dictators in Europe contributed to the outbreak of the Second World War. Now, let's have a look at the cause of the war. And as I have said earlier, that the cause of the war, it is how did it start and how did it end. Now let's have a look at it in this way. In 1940, remember the Second World War started in 1939. But in 1940, Germany launched a daylight attack on Britain, and the war went on until the winter season of 1941. Hitler then attacked the Soviet Union and made Germany to fight on two fronts. In 1941, Japan attacked the American fleet at Pearl Harbor without warning, and this made the United States of America to join the war on the side of Britain and Soviet Union. China also joined Britain and the Soviet Union, but Germany and Japan were well prepared. In North Africa here, Italy attacked Egypt but was pushed back by Allied forces at the Battle of El Alamein, where Germans were defeated by the British. In Europe, Benito Mussolini was overthrown by Anglo-American forces, and the new Italian government declared war on Germany. By 30th April 1945, the war was over in the West. In the East, the Allies and the United States of America dropped atomic bomb at Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan on 6th August 1945 with devastating results. And therefore, Japan surrendered and the war was over. Now, that is the cause of the war that we are able to talk about. Now, once we have noted about the cause of the war, there are certain questions that you may be asked. 1. Give the main incident which made Japan to surrender unconditionally to the Allied powers in 1945. 1 mark. Or name the event that marked the end of the Second World War in 1945. 1 mark. The only response is the dropping of the atomic bomb at Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. Or you can say the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Please, I want to advise you that when you are writing this, make sure that you don't only write the dropping of atomic bomb and stop there. Make sure that at least you identify where the bombing took place. That is at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Make sure that you mention that without even mentioning the year. Now, remember, we have discussed about that is what made the war to come to an end, or that is what made the Japan to surrender. Now, there are the results of the bomb, or that atomic bomb, and the students were asked, or you may be asked again, what were the results of the bombing of the Nagasaki and Hiroshima in Japan in 1945? One of the response, many people lost their lives. 2, property of great value was destroyed. 3, the radioactive elements caused many diseases. 4, many people were maimed. 5, there was economic decline, or it led to economic decline. 6, many people surrendered psychologically. And lastly, Japan surrendered unconditionally. Now, those are the results of the effects of bombing of Nagasaki and also Hiroshima. Now, my dear students, if you are asked to identify the results of the effect or the consequences, then those 7 are what you need to give. Now, remember that we have said that when this war started, USA, United States of America, was not in. But there's something that made the United States of America to get involved, to join the war on the side of the Allied powers. Now, we want to have a look at the role played by USA in the World War II. Let's have a look at the role, and you may be asked, state the role played by the United States of America in ending the Second World War, 3 marks. Or highlight the roles played by the United States of America in ending the Second World War, 3 marks. My dear students, these are the roles that were played by USA. 1. The USA dropped atomic bomb at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which forced Japan to surrender. The first role. The second one, the United States of America provided modern military equipment to the Allied powers. 3. She gave financial support to the Allied forces or Allied powers. 4. She provided military personnel to the Allied powers. And finally, USA blockaded the Panama Canal against the Axis powers. Now, my dear students, we need also to note that the Axis powers were defeated by the Allied powers. So we want to have a look at the reasons for the defeat of the Allied powers. The student, you as a student, you may be asked, give 5 factors that enabled the Allied powers to win the Second World War. These are the responses. 1. The Axis powers were faced with the shortage of valuable raw material, which was aggravated by prolonged war. So, that is the first factor, the shortage of valuable raw materials. 2. The Allied powers of Britain, USSR, and USA had massive combined resources to sustain them in the long-drawn war, hence minimizing the chances for the Axis powers' success. 3. The Axis powers were overstretched in fighting the war in many fronts. Remember, they had 2 fronts, that is the West and the East. 4. Allies controlled the North Sea, which ensured safe transportation of troops and equipment. They were also able to block the Axis powers in the sea. 5. United States of America entry into the war on the side of the Allies gave them a big advantage over Axis powers. 4. The Allied powers had more supporters and large armies than the Axis powers, who remained only 3. 7. Allied forces had better arms than the Axis powers, for example, atomic bombs. 8. Some of German allies, like Italy, turned against her, hence weakened the Axis powers. 9. The Axis powers made grave tactical mistakes which turned out to be too costly. 10. The USSR recovered from her losses, rearmed, and attacked Germany. 11. Popular sentiments was for Allied victory and Hitler's defeat. 12. External support, especially from the colonial people in Africa, Asia, and elsewhere. And finally, Allies had better industries and financial resources, or superior economy, war tactics, and superior diplomacy by all the Allied powers. Now, those are the reasons for the defeat of the Axis powers. My dear student, if you are asked to state the reasons for the defeat of the Axis powers, then those are the responses that you need to write. Now we want to have a look at the results of the Second World War. And my dear student, I want to inform you that all these results of the Second World War, we are able to divide them into three again. We have those political results, we have also the economic, and finally we have what is referred to as the social result or the effect. Now, if you are asked to describe the result of the Second World War, 12 marks, give as many as you can because you have not been limited. You can either give political, social, or economic. That question itself, it is opened. Explain 6 effects of the Second World War, 12 marks. Now you have been limited. You have to give 6. Anything more than 6, you will not be awarded. So you only need to give 6, and again, you can either give the social, the political, or the economic effect or the result. Now, we want to identify which are some of these political results. The first political result, the war led to the rise of the two superpowers, that is, the United States of America and the USSR as the world's most powerful nations. 2, it led to the extension of the communist zone in the continent of Europe, resulting into Iron Curtain that geographically divided Europe right down into 2. 3, it led to the Eastern Europe dominated by the formed Soviet Union. The weakened Western power had received assistance and protection from the United States of America from falling into communist hands. 4, it led to the division of Germany into 2, the Eastern and the Western Germany. 5, with the introduction of Marshall Plan, United States of America found herself getting more involved in the European affairs. Another political cause, 6, the war led to the production of nuclear weapons which could lead to the global destruction. 7, the war led to the creation of the States of Israel on May 14, 1948 to settle the Jews who had been scattered by, among other factors, the Nazi persecutions. 8, it led to the formation of the United Nations Organization in 1945 to promote peace and security. 9, the war catalyzed the movements towards decolonization. For example, the end of the war intensified the struggle in the colonies, especially after India gained her independence in 1947. 10, it led to the rise of nationalism in Asia and Africa following the return of ex-servicemen who organized and formed political movement. 11, it led to the division of Europe into 2 opposing blocs, led to the Cold War. And finally, it caused the fall of dictators in Europe like Hitler of Germany and Mussolini of Italy. Now, my dear students, those are some of the political results or effect of the Second World War. Now, before we look at the economic results, there is a question that the students were asked. Give the main reason why the United States of America adopted the Marshall Plan after the Second World War. Remember, we have identified Marshall Plan in the result, in the political result. So why? What was the main reason why the United States of America adopted the Marshall Plan? The correct response is in order to influence many countries adopt capitalism ideology or economic recovery in Europe. So the main reason why it had to adopt it is in order to influence economic recovery in Europe or influence many countries to adopt capitalism ideology. Now let's come and have a look at the economic results. State 2 economic results of the Second World War, 2 marks, so just give 2. Number 1, it led to the decline of agriculture and industries due to the lack of equipment, raw material, and human resources. 2, the war was costly as the countries involved spent a lot of money on war, hence slowed down economic development. 3, it led to the disruption of both internal and external trade. 4, the war ended Europe's economic dominance of the rest of the world, hence had to be rescued by the United States Marshall Plan. 5, the war created unemployment because the demoralized servicemen and prisoners of war increased demands for jobs. 6, it led to development in engineering. For example, during the war, engineers built military bridges in hours, laid oil pipes under the English Channel, and turned jungle into airports. 7, with the enormous destruction of industries and infrastructure such as roads, railways, and communication system, economies of countries were destroyed or their developments slowed down. 8, it led to the rise of debts as many countries borrowed a lot of money to finance the war. 9, it increased dependency of European powers in their colonies for raw material for their reconstruction programs. And finally, there was high inflation rate, hence high cost of living. Now, those are some of the economic results or the effect of the Second World War. Finally, let's have a look at the social results. 1, many people, both soldiers and civilians, lost their lives during the war. 2, it changed the status of women as they were now recognized as able decision makers and leaders of the family during the absence of their husbands. 3, it led to the displacement of the people since millions of people were rendered homeless through the destruction of their homes and through the abduction to concentration camps in Germany. 4, it led to the spread of infectious diseases such as tuberculosis and other diseases, mainly syphilis. 5, doctors made great advances in surgery and in treatment of the mentally and physically disabled as they treated war victims. 6, the bombs that were dropped in Japan released radioactive substances which affected the lives of many people long after the war was over. 7, millions of civilians were maimed or injured. And finally, the war shattered the myth, popularization by the Europe that they were superior to the Africans and all other races. Now, my dear student, those are some of the social results or effect of the Second World War. The last question. Explain 2 ways in which the Second World War led to increased dependency of European countries on their colonies. Now, that is economic effect. Now, we are asked to explain ways in which the Second World War led to increased dependency of European countries in their colonies. 2 marks. The first response, they supplied or were sources of material. Remember, we are saying that the colonies acted or supplied the raw materials to the European countries. 2, they provided markets for their manufactured goods. And 3, they received taxes from colonies. Now, those are some of the ways in which the Second World War led to the increased dependency of the European countries on their colonies. And my dear students, we need to note that these colonies that we are talking about, most of them were found in Africa. And the Africa, they supplied, or they were the sources of the raw material. The colonies in Africa also provided markets for the European manufactured goods. And finally, the European powers also received the taxes from colonies. Now, we can be asked this question because we are going to discuss it in our topic 2, the next topic in Form 4. Give the body that was formed immediately after the Second World War to promote world peace. Now, my dear students, we have been asked to give the body that was formed. Remember that after the Second World War, the body that was formed was the United Nations organizations. You can also write United Nations. Now, the correct response for that question is United Nations Organization. Or if you write United Nations alone, you will get that correct. Now, to my dear viewers, we have come to the end of the first topic in Form 4. And in that first topic in Form 4, we were looking at about the world wars, and we have identified only 2. In that topic, we have discussed about the First World War. We have also discussed about the Second World War. Now, I also want to remind you that after the First World War, we had started what is called the peace settlement, and in that peace settlement, we looked at about the treaties that were formed, and those treaties we said that they were referred to as the Treaty of the Versailles. From the Treaty of the Versailles, my dear students, we came and discussed about the League of Nations. After the failure of the League of Nations class, we discussed about the Second World War. And I want to say that thank you very much for watching my channel. Keep on subscribing, my dear students, and also the viewers. We hope to meet in our next lecture that is about the international relations. Thank you very much. Keep on going through my channel. More of the lecture I will provide to you. Thank you. Thank you.